Okay, so this one is I'm doing better with the radical honesty, which is often pushback towards my wife instead of good guy silence. But I find myself stopping after one, sometimes feeble pushback. I'm pretty sure I'm choosing peace over honesty. Any tips on pushing through would be appreciated. So it's not always volatile. He just backs down if there's even some resistance. Cool. Well, let's start by acknowledging what's going well. Okay, because pushing back once is light years ahead of not pushing back at all. Okay, that's a significant difference when it comes to becoming a more assertive person. Like, just at least asserting yourself a bit puts you in a whole different class than somebody who doesn't assert themselves at all, or somebody who's fake in agreeableness. So give yourself a pat on the back that you're doing any pushback. All right. Punishing yourself for not doing even more pushback is actually only counterproductive. It's just going to shame you, make you feel like you're not making any progress, and eventually lead to you not pushing back at all. You can tell yourself it's pointless and so on. So, what I really want to point out is that you punishing yourself for not being even more assertive is actually a secret self-sabotage technique to make being more assertive seem pointless. Because now you put yourself in a position where you can never catch up to the rainbow. Like every time you're more assertive, your brain will say, yeah, but you should be even more assertive. And it can do that for the rest of your life. In general, this is something I wanted to touch on with this question is your brain will always be able to think of an even better thing you could have done. You will never, ever achieve something so highly and so perfectly that your brain goes, I can't think of anything better than that. Never. In fact, I quite strongly believe that there is some part of the brain whose sole job it is to imagine better. I actually think that's a survival function, sort of a motivating force to push for us to do things back when we were like living in the savannah plain in tribes in the middle of the food chain, and nowadays it just gives us depression, right? But you've got this part of the brain that just keeps looking at everything you do and go, yeah, but you could have done more. And it doesn't really serve a helpful purpose. At best, it's sort of like gives me an idea of what to head for, but a lot of the times it's asking you for more than you're capable of doing, which is pointless. It should only ask you to do what you're capable of doing. And as soon as you do it, that will expand what you're capable of doing. The more you practice something, the better at it you get. You don't need to try to do more than you can do, which is impossible. So, you're doing better with radical honesty. It's the first thing you said, and that's the most important thing you said. You just keep pushing back, and you will eventually push back more. That being said, what you've picked up on is I'm choosing peace over honesty. So, what's happening is you're creating emotional discomfort by pushing back, and then your old sort of nice guy syndrome engineering is going like, all right, that's enough. Let's get back to comfort. So there's kind of like you're only having a burst of it rather than sustaining it. There's a little fallacy I want you to notice here. So while your brain is trying to choose peace over honesty, clearly this is not creating inner peace. So when you push back and then back down, you actually get quite uncomfortable. Maybe not immediately, but shortly thereafter. And in general, you're uncomfortable with yourself for backing down this way. So I want you to just sort of notice and acknowledge that this does not create more peace for you. This is one of the greatest kind of fallacies that people have around confrontation. They think backing down from confrontation creates more peace. There's really no evidence to support that. It creates an immediate sensation of relief when the other person cools down because you've become agreeable, sure, but you hate yourself more, so the inner peace gets ruined. You sit there going, I wish I had said this, I wish I had said that. That's not peace, right? And then the other person, in the long run, your relationship with that person becomes less peaceful, right? It leads to more conflicts because the person doesn't trust you, because you've got no spine. They've got that like irresistible urge to keep pushing to see if you'll push back, and then eventually, resentment builds and there's covert contracts, and then the relationship falls apart. That's not peace, is it? Right? If backing down was a good way of managing a relationship, I'd be out of a job, dude. right? Most of the guys that come to see me either can't maintain a relationship or are just about to get divorced or whatever. Their partner's cheating on them, so on and so forth. All these terrible things happening in their relationships because they're not confrontational enough, right? Because they don't set and enforce strong boundaries, because they're not clear on what their preferences are, because their partner isn't able to trust what you say because you're always so falsely agreeable, right? So you've got to get it out of your head that you're choosing peace. You're not. You're choosing chaos. You're choosing destruction. You're choosing the end of the relationship over honesty, right? It's just your old wiring that tells you this is peaceful. What's really happening is the tension went up, the tension went back down, and so you felt like that was a peaceful moment. It's like the relief of having a cigarette without really acknowledging that the craving for the cigarette was caused by having cigarettes, right? Often your conflicts with your partner are caused by previous instances of you backing down or being dishonest. I'm so honest. My wife and I are very, very honest with each other all the time. And it's just very rare for us to have conflicts. All that stuff is like prevented because there's no build-up, there's no secrets revealed, there's no hidden resentments blurted out, or whatever. Like everything's out in the open at the smallest possible levels, so the scale doesn't really go up very much. Right? I'm not saying we don't have heated moments, but we never shout at each other or insult each other or are at any sort of risk of breaking up or anything like that. And I do believe it's because we're quite confrontational. Every day we have disagreements about stuff. Every day we come to a head where one of us won't budge on an issue. But it's not that uncomfortable, especially once you're used to it, and especially once you know it's a healthy part of the relationship. It's just not immediately pleasant, right? So, tips on pushing through. I'd say the biggest tip here is just don't back down. Okay. Often we back down because we see that we're not going to win this thing. And we're so attached to winning, we say, well, what's the point of pushing if I'm not going to win? Well, what if you let go of winning and standing up for yourself is the point? You can still stand up for yourself and lose, right? You can be on your way to the ballet saying, just going to say it one last time, I don't want to go to this, right? To just focus on holding the truth rather than winning the debate, winning the game, getting what you want, right? Because, yeah, people are going to push back. You disagree, they're going to disagree in return. It's not like you disagree and they go, oh, okay, fair enough. That's not how it works. If you're hoping for that, that's why you're backing down so quickly. You're like, oh, no, it didn't work. But what do you mean by work, right? The other person didn't immediately agree with you. No, they're not going to. They don't have to. They don't ever have to. And you don't actually have to convince them. You pushing back is not the same as you convincing them. If you can separate those two and see that they're very different from each other, it really helps. Like assertiveness is just holding the line. Aggression is going over the line into their territory and trying to change things. Assertiveness is just preventing their aggression, preventing them from changing your things. So if you go into confrontations knowing I'm not trying to change their mind, I'm not trying to agree with them, this can actually end with disagreement and not get concluded with agreement, that's fine. But if I'm sure on this, I'm just going to not change my position. And this is particularly always true when it comes to preferences. Now, you might say, like, there's certain things you can be debated and moved on, and it's fair enough. You say, this is the best way to do something. They go, no, look at this evidence. Actually, that's pretty much fair enough. Okay, I'm going to change it. That's not compromising who you are. That's just being smart because someone had a better argument. But when you say something like, I don't want to do this, that's not a thing that can be debated, right? Your preferences, I like, I dislike, I prefer, I don't want, these aren't up for debate. You never have to back down on these positions. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to compromise your behavior, but your position should never be compromised. So let's say, I don't know, I hate pop music. It might end up that when my wife's driving, she gets to put on pop music. I don't always get the music I want, but I'm never going to pretend to like pop music, right? I'm never going to agree that this is a good song. If she asks me, I'm going to say, this sucks. I hate it. right? I'll let you listen to it because I'm not going to tell you how to live. I'm not going to try and make you like metal, right? I'm actually quite compassionate to the idea that you can't make someone like some type of music. So don't try to make me like your music, right? I wouldn't do that to you, so don't do it to me. And you just hold. And you're like, but listen, the drumming's so good. If you say it is, then it is for you. It's not for me. Stop telling me it is. And you just become this kind of like broken clock, just like, nope, 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 right? Just, I'm not moving on this. It really helps in conflict, especially to eventually resolve, is say, look, I'm not going to try and change your mind, so respect me and don't try to change mine. It puts them in this position. If they then try to change yours, well, they're being the bad guy, right? You're now on the moral high ground, and they're going to have to reconcile with that and make them uncomfortable. So if you constantly point out, like, look, I am not going to try and change you or convince you. Your mind is yours to make up for yourself. You choose what you want and prefer. It's up to you. But I'm not going to change mine on this now either. So stop doing it. Okay, stop trying to convince me. Just state your position and I will respect it. And you can respectfully disagree, right? My wife and I, we agree on just about everything when it comes to parenting, but there are a couple of key points we're not so in agreement with. And for example, I really just don't want my daughter to eat processed sugar, right? I just don't think there's any reason she needs to in her whole life. She can decide that when she's older, but I think her life is just infinitely better if that stuff doesn't go in her body. My wife disagrees. She thinks occasionally a treat's good and so on and so forth. I don't need to change her mind on this. This isn't a deal breaker situation for me. When I'm with my daughter, I won't give her that stuff. And when she's with Lucy, Lucy can give her whatever she thinks is best. I don't have to win this. I'm just not going to be moved on it. You're not going to convince me that giving processed sugar to a kid's a good idea. But it's okay if you do, because I'm not going to convince you that it's not either, right? So pushing back does not mean changing the other person's mind. It just means stopping them from changing yours. So let go of controlling other people, because that's what's really under this, I think. Just focus on holding strong to yourself, allowing this thing to end with discomfort rather than trying to conclude it all the time. You guys will be all right. You've got to get it out of your head, especially nice guys in relationships. You've got to get it out of your head that everything always has to wrap up nicely and end with pleasantry and end with a sense of like comfort and security. Let tension hang. All right. It's you killing tension all the time that's actually the secret destroyer of your relationships. Sometimes tension needs to hold. Sometimes they might need 2 days to process something before they actually come round. And if you intervene early, then they never come round. Right. I can't tell you how many times I've had a heated debate with my wife. And then like later in that afternoon, she sort of humbly goes, yeah, all right, fair enough. I was like, oh, I just had to wait. But if I'd backed down early, I would have actually given her the impression that I agreed with her position and maybe allowed something harmful to happen. It turns out actually she just needed to be mad at me for a little while because I pointed out a truth she didn't want to hear. And that goes both ways, I should point out. There's plenty of times where I, hat in hand, go back to her, but all right, fuck it, you were right. But I needed to sulk for a while. And it's good that she didn't back down while I was sulking because that would have just condoned that sort of sulky response. Are you a nice guy or people pleaser who wishes they were more assertive, more honest, and better respected by others? Since 2013, I've been helping people just like you discover their integrity and apply it courageously to build deep and meaningful connections, get respected by others, and become the confident person you've always wanted to be. Imagine being able to speak your mind without worrying what other people will think or worrying that it's the right thing to say, and being able to assertively stand up for yourself and your loved ones. Imagine never feeling the need to apologize for who you are or what you want, and being able to live carefree without shame or the I'm not good enough story in your head. Imagine going to bed knowing that you courageously took every opportunity available to you and you've got no regrets because you always know what you should be doing in every situation. I'm so confident in my ability to help people like you unleash your highest level of self worth that I give people a free coaching session to test what I'm doing. In this 1 hour session, we will uncover the biggest barrier to your confidence, whether it's an awareness problem, you don't know what you should be doing differently, or it's a courage problem, you know what you should be doing, but you find it too intimidating. I will guide you to make a breakthrough with your behavior to get through that barrier in a powerful way without feeling terrified and without destroying everything you love. I've had some people find this first session so powerful that I never hear from them again simply because they didn't need anything more after that. It launched them into the highest level of confidence that they've ever experienced. And if that's the result you get, I'm good with that. One client put it, this session was more valuable to me than 3 years of therapy combined. So if you're tired of trying to keep everybody happy, and you're sick of worrying what other people think of you, and you're concerned that your people-pleasing and conflict avoidance is going to damage your relationships, then come and have a talk with me. Worst case scenario, you get to experience what it's like to talk with someone who actually understands what it's like to be you. I've lived the nice guy experience for decades. I know it inside and out. I know that pain. Case scenario, and very likely, you will have such a powerful insight into a behavioral change that you can make in the next 24 hours to significantly improve your confidence, relationships, and career. All I ask is that you be honest, open to change, and willing to try something new. Why wait another 10 years to discover confidence when you can do it today? Fill out the brief form below to apply for a trial coaching session. Do this quickly because there are limited spots each month, and then I'll get back to you to book in a time to talk.